Welcome to bilingual e-lectures for diploma students. This e-lecture series discuss about the subject of C programming. In C programming subject there are 5 units. The first unit deals about the program development and introduction to C. But in the initial part of this e-lecture, we will see what is a computer, what are the functions of the computer and how it works, and the program and programming concepts we will discuss. First, we will see what is a computer, because all of you use a computer today. This computer can be defined as a data processing system. Actually, it is a fast, accurate and electronic data processing system. That means the computer is used for processing of data. It is designed to accept and store input data and process them and produce results. The process is controlled by the program. So, it produces the output under the direction of a detailed set of instructions called program. The computer can only do what it is asked to do. Right, it is a data processing system. First, we have to understand what is meant by data. Actually, we use calculators for simple calculations, and the computer can handle large amount of data and different types of data. But what is a data? These are the facts or informational raw materials represented by symbols. Data is a plural form of datum. So, datum is a singular. So, do not say datas. Actually, data itself is a plural. So, it represents informations or facts. So, after processing the raw data, we get the useful information. This information is relevant knowledge that results from the processing of data that helps to make a decision. So, this computer is a device which is used for processing data and produces result that will be the useful information for making decisions. That is why we call the computer as a decision making system. So, there are variety of data. This data is available in different forms. Actually, we use the computer for processing something that facts like numbers or strings or text, which are characters, or some values are logical or Boolean values like true, false or yes or no. And the computer also can process images, sound or audio and video. So, these types of data can be given to the computer and the computer can process them and produce the result. So, before going into programming, first we should understand what the computer can do for us. If you do not have any data, we need not use a computer. So, data is the central part of this computer. So, the main purpose of the machine or the computer is data processing. This data may be the above things: numbers, characters and booleans, images, sound and audio. Both are same, sound and audio, and video informations. Let us see, actually, for example, if you are filling an application while applying for a company or in college, you fill the following informations: name of the candidate, address, age, marks details and so on. Here these are the facts about the person or a student. So, name is in the form of text, address is also a text, or we call it as a character data. Age is a number, it may be a whole number or some fractions. Percentage of marks, we say in average, in percentage of marks in fractions, and there may be some questions like, are you a state player or have you passed SSLC? You may say yes or no. Sometimes you tick in a box, or we give true or false. And there are some additional informations like image of a candidate, and we put signatures. So, in this form, these are the data about a student or about an applicant. Here we have seen different types of information. Some values are text, and some values are numbers, and something Boolean values or logical values like yes or no. The computers are capable of doing calculations on these values. Nowadays, the computers can process images and can process sound or speech. So, these computers are able to process these types of data, right. So, next we see what is the meaning of that processing. So, to process the data, the values should be entered into the system. For this, we need different tools and techniques for input as well as for output. That means, computer should produce the result on some devices. So, it accepts the data through the input devices and process them and produce the output in some output devices. In between the process is the calculation that we will see what are the actions performed on those data. The entered data are internally represented as numbers, even though it is a image or audio, they are represented as numbers inside the computer memory. So, the computers can manipulate numbers. So, we call the computer as a number crunching machine, that means number processing or numeric processing machine, right. So, the processing involves the input, that is capturing the raw input data from the user and storing the information, retrieving the information. That means, for processing we give some data through the keyboard or through the scanner or through some other video devices like camera. These data are stored in the computer. So, it should be able to capture the given values or given data into a memory and store it, and then whenever we need, we can retrieve the data. So, these are also the process of computer systems. So, storing and retrieving itself is a main task in many applications, like we can store the songs and we retrieve and play it. We can store the books on e-books or materials whenever we need, we retrieve this. And we can also perform searching on the stored data. The searching is also known as finding or locating the information. These are the applications in, for example, in a directory, telephone directory, we search the phone number of a particular person. And another type of application is sorting. That means we arrange the data in increasing or decreasing order of numbers or alphabetical order of text. So, the data can be arranged, or the data can be classified into different types. We can group the information according to some criteria or some basic values. For example, the student information can be classified into different branches. Next, we can perform, or the computer performs some mathematical operations on the data. So, performing arithmetic operations or trigonometric operations like trigonometric functions, applying functions on those data, are also processing. So, computers are capable of processing different types of data. So, from this actually what is meant by data and what are the functions or operations we do on those data. If we understand only these two things, then only we can imagine the power of the computer. So, if you want to use a computer, first you should understand for what we are using the computer and how we process that data. Right. So, the computer is defined as a data processing system. So, here the system is a word which represent the computer, because it is not a single device, it has different sub components. So, normally a system is a group of integrated parts that have the common purpose of achieving some objectives. Computer is also made up of integral components. They work together to perform the data processing task. That is why it is called as a system. But nowadays that mobile phones or some other electronic gadgets also have such systems, that means display system, keyboard system or processing, etc. From this we understand a computer is a data processing system which accepts data, different types of information like numbers, characters, Boolean values, images and audios, and process them and produce the output. Right. Now, we will see what are the components of this computer system. In the entire system, we have different types of elements or components. The computer has a physical machines, physical components, we call it as devices, electronic devices or keyboard, mouse, like this. So, these physical components are called hardware, and there is another part called software. The programs and data stored in the computer storage devices are called software. Both data and programs are called software. They are kept in the memory. The another software which is built into the system and supplied by the manufacturers of the motherboard is called a firmware. So, firmware is a collection of programs supplied by the manufacturers. They come with the motherboard, like BIOS ROM. These programs automatically execute even though other devices are not attached. When you switch on the computer, it will display the message like actually how much memory is there, whether the keyboard is connected or not, etc. So, this firmware is built into the computer motherboard. So, it is a software within a hardware. Then if you have all those systems like the physical devices and the software and the firmware, but we need operators or programmers to use the computers effectively. So, humanware or human operators also very important. All these components, hardware, software, firmware and human operators or programmers are all required for the effective use of a computer system. Now, the hardware, you see what are the devices used in the computer machine. So, in a computer there are certain devices used to give the values into the system. They are called input devices like keyboard, mouse, scanner, smart pen, web camera or digital camera and discs. You know, keyboard is a general or most useful input device for entering alphabets and text. Mouse is a pointing device. We use the mouse to mark or to point something on the screen. Scanner can be used to input the images. Smart pen, we can draw on the screen, we can point, and cameras are used for video and image inputs, and also a disk can be used for input. That means, the data can be read from the disks into the system. So, input means giving data into the system. The another major part of the computer is a CPU. This central processing unit is a brain of the computer. It has a control unit, arithmetic and logical unit and memory unit. Then output devices like monitor, printer, plotter and disks. Here disks are used both as input and output devices, because the data can be read from the input from the disk, as well as the data can be stored in the disks. So, it can act both input and output devices. Storage devices, the data processed or data required are stored in the memory and external storage devices. These storage devices are used to hold the data. So, there are different types of storage devices like semiconductor memories and optical and magnetic disks. So, in this picture, this is the entire computer system. It has a system unit and screen, which is a monitor, and keyboard, speakers, mouse. It has different types of devices for input and output, and the CPU or system unit or system box holds the CPU. In the system box, there are motherboards, power supply units and hard disks and CD drives, etc. All the components are inside the system unit. So, software is the term used to describe the collection of programs and data that tell the system how to perform a task. So, it is a collection of programs that instruct the machine how to do a particular task. So, the software is classified into system software and application software. These are the two kinds of software. The system software are the programs which control the internal functions of the computer, like reading data from the input devices, transmitting processed information to the output devices, or checking to see that the system components are operating properly. So, the system softwares are the control programs. There are different types of system programs. We normally use the system programs like the operating system, OS, we call it as OS. This operating system is the main part in the computer. Without the operating system, the system or the computer will not work. So, the system softwares are operating systems, language translators, and device drivers and utility programs. Operating system is a set of programs used to manage the resources and overall operations of the computer, like Unix, DOS, disk operating system, Windows, Linux. These are the operating systems on the desktop and we use on the laptops, etc. Language translator, it is another software component which is system software, because these components, these softwares are used for translating programs. That is why they are called language translators. They used to translate assembly language or high level language programs into machine language. We will see in the later slides what are the assembly and machine language programs. So, these translators are also system programs. To translate the assembly language program, we use assemblers. To translate high level language programs, we use interpreters and compilers. For some languages, interpreters can be used, for other languages compilers can be used. The device drivers or utility programs are supplied by the hardware manufacturers or device manufacturers. Some programs are part of the operating systems. So, these are the software components provided with the operating system. They can be purchased from the software vendors. Device drivers are control programs for the devices. They are supplied by the device manufacturer, for example, printer driver or scanner driver. So, if you install that driver, then only the printer can work properly. So, these device drivers directly work with the operating system, so that the device can communicate with the computer properly. The another type of software is called application software. So, applications are the programs for a specific task. These softwares are collections of programs which are designed and developed for a specific application. They are usually developed using a high level language program. They are also called packages. So, these application softwares are installed on the computer with the help of the operating system, and then the user can operate these application softwares like CAD software for drawings, payroll software, banking applications and office packages. So, any software which is used for a specific application of the user or specific purpose, it is an application software. The third component of the computer is a firmware. So, firmware is also a software within a hardware, that means within the read only memory of the motherboard. These programs are supplied with the computer by the manufacturers. A ROM BIOS. A BIOS is a basic input output system. This program comes with the motherboard and it performs power on self test. When you switch on the computer, it checks the computer itself. This is called a power on self test. During this test, it checks the memory or other connected devices are working properly, otherwise it indicates some error messages in the form of text on the screen or sometimes like beep sounds. So, this program is part of the firmware. This firmware or BIOS programs also load the operating system from the hard disk, and it maintains the data about the system configuration, because in a single motherboard, that means a computer with a particular motherboard, we can use different operating systems. We install over the computer in different times. Sometimes we use Windows or we use Linux, but the hardware is same. This is a fixed one, that is the firmware. Without a firmware, even the computer cannot start, it cannot load the operating system. The fourth part of the components of a computer is a humanware. That means, actually the programmers are the users of the computer. So, without the programmer or the user, any advanced computer on any latest device is not at all useful. So, for operating a machine, we need efficient operator or a programmer. So, for the effective utilization of these different components like hardware, software, firmware, etc., we need a skilled programmer or operator. So, up to this we have seen what is a computer, what are the components of a computer. So, the main purpose is a data processing. We understand what is meant by data and what are the tasks or processes performed by the computer on the given data, and how it accepts the data from the user, how it produces the output. So, we have seen input devices and output devices, etc. So, this is the computer. Using this computer only, we process the data. For processing, we have to instruct the computer. So, we need a means of communication between the computer and the user. So, we use a language. Actually, language is a medium of communication. Humans use languages to communicate with others. We use spoken languages, written language like Tamil, English or Hindi, and also sign language. So, next we will see what are the different methods of communicating with the computer, what is meant by a computer language, how we give instructions to the computer, which is also called a program, and what are the levels of these computer languages. We will see these concepts in the next lecture. Thank you.